In. Yes, we're ready. All right, guys, I'm not welcoming anyone because first we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance, once again. Wow, that's right. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President, welcome.
Jeez. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Monday, January 12th, 2026 regular meeting of the Granville Exempted Village Schools Board of Education. Please take the roll.
Ms. Shaw?
Here.
Mr. Crum?
Here.
Ms. Deeds?
Here.
Ms. Colheim? Here. Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Can I get approval of the agenda, please? So moved.
Second.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Colheim? Aye. Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye. Do we need to slow down at all?
Nope, we're
Okay,
good now.
She's good.
We're
Yeah.
We're rolling.
All right.
Thank you. Turn it over to you.
All right, district highlights. So I'll start with presenting a little gift
Thank you.
on behalf of, thank you, the organization. It should be the, okay. I had it in order.
Seeds.
You did move seeds. All right, there you go. Thank you. Did I get it right? Right, there we go. All right, so this is School Board Recognition Month. On behalf of the Granville Schools community, students, parents, and all the other community members that you represent, we'd like to thank you for the work that you provide for the organization and the community. You are elected officials, and you represent this community on behalf of them to operate the school district as part of the governance team. The governance team includes the superintendent and treasurer, who you hire to do the day-to-day operations, but really it's your strategic leadership that helps us shape the education that we provide and the mission that we fulfill. There's no greater mission than learning for life. And so thank you on behalf of everybody in the community. I'd like to talk a little bit about the book that you have been gifted. It is something that we as the administrative team and members of the Full Child Committee and the administrative team, we've been looking at related to the types of learners that we face. The authors really talk about 4 types of learners, and we've all been those types of learners at one point in our lives, depending on the course, the content, the instructor, but we've all been resistors. We've all been passive. We've all been achievers, and we all have been explorers at different times. You know, we have a pretty decent distribution of high achievers in our organization, but really the goal is for students to really take that next level and have that explorer mentality, where they're really self-initiating the questions that they want to pursue. And it's an internal drive versus an external reward for, say, a grade or something like that. And by the time they walk across the stage, we hope that they're fully engaged in that explorer mentality as they go into the next step, whether that's career or college or the workforce, but really creating that type of perspective. And like I said, it's not your one for your entire life. You move in and out of those throughout your years. But we do think it really resonates with our community around the notion of agency and the development of agency. And that's something that we've been focusing on for a long time here in Granville Schools. And I think we do it really well. And our staff spend a lot of time trying to think about students' individual interests and encouraging those pursuits. Today I sat through an independent study presentation of a graduating senior who just received his, he passed his pilot's license test and did his first solo flight. He will go in to college in his pursuit of aviation and business management, already going into instrument training. So, which is usually something you don't get to until your sophomore year. But because of that credit flex opportunity, he was able to achieve his first solo flight, which is really cool. He passed his written exam, his ground exam as well. And his parents were there to sit through the presentation as well. That's the type of explorer mentality we're trying to create. That's something that you're a part of as the Board of Education, and we sincerely appreciate all that you do.
Thank you so much.
Not a huge crowd to clap, but I guarantee you there are thousands online clapping at this moment.
Watch it.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. All right, next up, we have our staff reports, and Eric Lennox is going to start and give a technology update. He has to move his laptop and get set up.
He has to film himself.
Yes.
Eric, I fully expect this to be flawless in any technological problem.
Well, boy, you better lock it.
We know you jinxed it.
Nowhere to go but up.
All right.
All right. So the main things we want to talk about here today are the three major policy updates going into this year, well, or as the years progress. Those three things would be the cybersecurity mandate from House Bill 96, and then the other big piece is the AI policy mandate, and then the changes to our student BYOD policy. All right, we're going to start with the cybersecurity mandate. Now, this is a requirement set out by the state that districts must adopt a formal cybersecurity program. The goal of this program is to make sure that district data and technology and resources are all, safe and protected. Now, part of the standards, we must follow a generally accepted best practice framework, which we'll get to later. Now, this is a board policy that we will be voting in soon, or already?
We currently have a cybersecurity policy in place. It's EHC, but there will be tweaks to it along the way, kind of like the cell phone policy, iterated over time. We'll probably have a very similar conversation about cybersecurity.
Some of the top cybersecurity priorities we have are very simple things like inventory, knowing what's on our network, data protection, making sure that all our student and financial data is safe, access control, making sure users only can access what they need. Some of these safeguards would include things like multi-factor. Everybody loves Duo, it's their best friend. Training, just basic phishing training, things like that, and making sure we have a good backup. Now, and the other big piece is the ransomware on the board. So it is a state mandate that we cannot pay any ransom unless the board passes a formal resolution. This is, again, from the state, and it must state that the payment is in the district's best interest. Hopefully, you never have to worry about this, but just wanted to make sure we're getting all the dots.
And I think one other point that we've been trying to make over the entire organization is cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. It's not just Eric's responsibility or the technology department. Every person who has a device, students, parents, staff members, not parents really, they are all part of our cybersecurity network and policy.
Okay, so the framework we decided to adopt would be the Center for Internet Security Controls version 8. This is an international community-driven standard. The focus is to help defenders, identify the most critical things that we need to do to stop attacks. Now, one of the big reasons we use this is it's designed around 3 implementation groups, basically ranging from small, big, medium. To boil it all down, basically it's focused on keeping the school operational and safe, while also laying a really well-rounded cybersecurity foundation. And it also has a growth plan for us to go into. So real quick, those implementation groups are IG 1, 2, and 3. Now the first one is designed for small to medium organizations like us with limited IT staff and cybersecurity personnel. It's really, again, just a great starting point for organizations to develop, a cybersecurity program and get off of things. This includes, there are 18 security controls, and inside that 56 core safeguards. What that basically means is there are 56 items on our cybersecurity program that make sure we're covering, A to Z as we go. Now, where we would like to aim to get to over the next year or two would be implementation group 2. Now, this basically picks up for more complicated organizations and help with more operational complexity. This will adopt an additional 74 safeguards. Some of those requiring special tools and dedicated security personnel. Obviously, as we grow, we'll see which one of those are relevant for us as a school and which ones aren't. And then just to round things out, IG3 is really meant for very large organizations. We will likely look at adopting some of their safeguards, but that brings the full set all the way up to 153. So we'll selectively pick and choose as we grow. Okay, so moving on from cybersecurity into the new AI policy mandate. Now this, we just recently started looking into, the goal of this is to make sure that every school district has some kind of AI plan. Now they do provide some guidance on a 5-step process that we will slowly work through, and that's just a simple, 1 through 5, taking stock, identifying values, setting principles, drafting a policy, and then practice and monitoring policy. Now, again, this won't take effect until July 1st, and we'll slowly work on what that looks like over the coming months. And then the last thing I want to cover today is the changes to the BYOD policy. Now, the old policy, I believe, was set before COVID.
Yes.
Or maybe even before one-to-one.
Before 1-to-1.
Before one-to-one. And that allowed students to bring their own personal laptops into the classroom and use them in exchange for whatever was there. Our new policy is going to remove that. So it's now going to be limited to our district managed devices. This is important to reduce both network risks, classroom distractions, and we have classroom learning management tools that only work on our devices. If somebody brings in their outside device, very hard to make sure things are going the way they need to in the classroom. It also eliminates the ability to use devices to circumvent the electronic communication policy, which is a big deal this year and will be going forward. All right, I know I ran through that pretty quickly, but if you have any questions, feel free.
I do. I guess going back to cybersecurity, is that going to be a big asset to the Treasurer's Department for where people are phishing and, I don't know all the terminology, but where they're stealing from organizations?
Yes.
I mean, will this be assistance to the Treasurer's Department as well?
Yes, it'll be assistance to everything. So it's very robust.
And honestly, in order to qualify for the cybersecurity insurance, we have to do a lot of things, check a lot of boxes, and the framework kind of checks those, but they are best practices.
I would say it really formalizes a lot of the things that Glenn and his team really put together for me. So I fairly like work moving that to a real bona fide program.
And one other question, when you were talking about, 153 total, can you pick and choose what you want to use from?
Yes, so the state would like us to adopt a program based on a framework. It's not saying that we have to, since we're adopting the CIS, framework, that we have to do every one of them. We can kind of pick what works for us and what doesn't.
Okay.
There are certain parts that just don't apply because we're school
Right.
system and all that.
But there's things in the higher levels that might apply that you can pick those?
Absolutely.
Great,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yep.
Do school districts around the county or around the state, I guess, work it all together or communicate at all about these issues?
Yes, absolutely. They definitely do. And I would say we're near the front of the pack, which is a good thing. There are a lot of districts that are struggling to get off the ground, but fortunately, we're in a pretty good spot.
And we do get daily updates related to malware, ransomware updates, patches that we get from the state of Ohio that says, hey, pay attention to this. And Eric participates in getting that information, and we look to see if it applies to us. And it's a day-to-day job. I mean, you have to constantly be vigilant. Any questions?
Right, to kind of address your point, in addition to this formal policy, there, like the treasurer's office has very specific procedures related to phishing. So for employees to make changes to their direct deposit account or vendor ACH account information, we have a specific set of procedures that we go through to verify that those are legitimate changes. All direct deposit changes have to be made in person, for example.
Thank you very much. As Eric is sitting down and I'm pulling up the demographics report, I would also say that initially, the guidance that we received around AI was don't create a policy because it's too new. Now, the state of Ohio has created a model policy, and we'll be working through that. But we have invested in an AI tool that aligns with the data privacy agreement work that we have to do in compliance with another House bill that was passed. So again, I think we're ahead of the game because we have a specific tool that we're utilizing in the interest of utilization of AI. But again, we want to lay out parameters that fit what our student population needs in order to be successful. Okay, I am going to quickly set up. Okay. Brittany said she was impressed, which means it probably won't work as soon as I get there. Okay. As you know, we have been engaged with Cooperative Strategies, now Wolpert, to do enrollment projections over the last several years once we started the work with the Strategic Planning Task Force. So the work that they do is really looking at in future enrollment in two different ways. They really are apples and oranges. One is kind of a historic look to look at the live birth cohort methodology, which I'll explain in a minute, and then the future land use model. And those two have created kind of a nexus of what we could potentially anticipate. So just to give you an idea, I'm going to start with enrollment that looks at historical enrollment and cohort survivability, which is really how many students go from first grade to second grade to third grade, and that it creates a factor that we can then predict what it might be in the future. And that's called the cohort survivability method. But the first piece to this information is the live birth counts. So as you know, we have actually multiple zip codes that we encompass Granville schools. And so what we did a couple of years ago, and Thomas Miller really was dug into this data and asked a lot of questions in the Strategic Planning Task Force to talk about which zip code would be the best to utilize to look at this information. We have it all. It's hard to tease out 43055, which is Newark. But Park Trails is in Newark, and that we have a lot of students that come from that subdivision. But when we looked at it, it was almost 50-50 if we use, 43055 or 43023. But we oriented to 43023 because we believe that it is the greatest predictor. What I'd like to do is just call your attention to this number right here. So in 2021, as you can see, that's kind of an outlier with the rest of this list, which means that we next year will, either next year or the next 2 years, expect larger classrooms in kindergarten coming in. And yeah, Melanie and Kevin, you should apologize for that. It would have been 115. Yeah, exactly. So But this is, we do look at live birth rates, and then there's also a methodology that looks at when they actually come into kindergarten. So birth to K, we typically are in the high 190s to 200s, where they were born here and they come into school. So if it's 200, we have 116, think about 200% of that coming in, and that could give you an idea of how we generate the numbers. And then we do that from K to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. We also do birth to 1 because some people choose a different option for kindergarten, so we look at it both ways, okay? And then there's all kinds of math over here that looks at what way to calculate and what is the best fit for us. And I think we are using the 3-year simple mean. So in our data right now. So what that does is it creates, a pattern of enrollment. This is 2016 to 25-26, and you can see that we've grown steadily over the last decade, but incrementally, I would call it. And we've had some up and down years related to market trends and all the factors that happen, i.e. COVID and other things, okay? And so, and then we look at that from historical enrollment according to grade level and grade buildings. Another piece of information we look at is we track community school participation and homeschool enrollment. So if you notice, during the COVID years, we had a little bit higher community school population. Now that has trended down from a high of 71 down to 21. Homeschooling participation right around 100 most of the time. Ryan Burnett does an excellent job working with the homeschool parent population. I think it's important to understand that our perspective is we want all children educated. Now, I believe that the state has a different philosophy on funding, but I will not share that for this presentation because I don't want to elongate the conversation. So if you look at historical and projected, you have this relatively flat line of incremental growth, and then based on the cohort survivability and the live birth rate, you basically create 3 trends, a low, middle, and high, okay? And that's based off of that one methodology, all right? And so what we do is we kind of look at, okay, as kindergartners come in February and register, we start to calibrate, how did the projection match the expected or the actual? But what you can see is if we factor that into that broader model, if we have close to 221 kindergartners coming in, that will be the largest class ever coming in kindergarten. Remember a couple of years ago, we had 183 come in, and it was a very large kindergarten class, and we thought, uh-oh, here it comes, because it was timed perfectly with Intel. And then the next year, it dropped. So, we don't know, we're expecting it to drop again, maybe not as much, but still a higher trend overall. And that class, as it goes through, will grow until they graduate at almost 267, which would be our largest class ever. So that is just based on enrollment projections and the mobility factors that we have looked at based on the historical data. Any questions about that?
Can you remind us again, why is 2026, 27 higher? Was that the
2021 live birth rate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have to do our current elementary capacity, can it hold a class of 221?
It can right now because we have some lower grade levels. Like if you look right here, John, you have some really low class sizes. And so we do have the ability to flex some space and create some additional spaces.
And I was more anticipating maybe our K through 3 licensed
teachers, a couple of them would pop down and maybe follow this class.
Yeah, what we traditionally do when we have a bubble is we'll ask people to move with the bubble as they progress or matriculate through the grade levels. Good questions. Okay, so enrollment projections and also land use, we always look at, these are the things that could create havoc or potentially change the projections that we have. And several of them may be on our horizon, i.e. we know this is annexation, but zoning changes could change things for us. You know, anything that we potentially could be impacted by is on this list. So then we get into the student potential analysis, and that really looks at our boundaries and our land use. Okay, so it's a different methodology of enrollment projections, and it looks at how many students do we typically get from a housing development and or a single family home. And it creates this dynamic that we've talked about. If a home is built, usually we see the greatest enrollment of students in that home for the first 12 to 13 years, okay? Which could be a peak of almost 1.6 for a new home that's being built. So you have this maximum enrollment, and then as that home matures, it tends to level off, and you get this mature enrollment. What I want to call your attention to, it's hard for me to see over here, so I'll move over here, is you have, you know, homes that are being built that are obviously more expensive. And so we probably will see people coming in with older children, potentially. And we've had many homes that come in with 1.67, 2, across the spectrum. But over the years, the number of homes that are getting more expensive in Granville continues to move to the right. But this trend, 1.6 is really high.
It seems low to me.
I mean, when you look at it in aggregate, remember all the homes.
Okay.
So to give you an example, Olentangy's was, during their high growth, was close to 1.8, and now it's down closer to like 1.4. So this is really high. So it basically says when a single-family home is built, usually it's coming with family and kids, and we know that. Willow Bend is a perfect example, okay? And if they're not within that live birth calculation now, they may be in utero. So, you never know. Yeah, I know. I'm walking a fine line here. So here is that yield calculation, and this is that maturity yield. So 0.6 when it's at 35 years old. But you have to plan for an in-between between maximum and mature. Because if you don't, you will have overcrowding. But you don't want to overbuild, because then you'll have empty buildings. So it's as a governance team, it's really finding that line of best fit that helps you navigate that growth process. So here are a couple of things that I want to point out. So we've had Mockingbird Hill, which is up in this area. Willow Bend, I already mentioned. There are 67 homes, and Eric lives in that area. I think there are only 4 lots that are available, potentially, and maybe already sold, but not built on. So that that number of homes was built relatively quickly. And it is going to yield students, it already is. So, and you can see the maximum enrollment would be close to 111, mature would be about 31. Heath Hills, which is the MI subdivision, it now has a name. So, no comment?
You sure?
Yes. Shadow Creek Estates and Glacier Rock are also on the docket, but they're very small. They're pretty much in line with the 5-acre minimum and or a small PUD that is a 2 to 3 acre lot with some green space in a small subdivision, if that makes sense. So we do have construction that is occurring. If you look at our breakdown, we are still 48% ag, 2.1% industrial, 3% commercial, 37% residential, and 8.5% exempt. Okay? That's the breakdown of our environment. So the way that we look at student potential is we look at the future land use and the potential there, and we factor into future development, existing housing, current developments, and future development. And we say, okay, if we build out 20 units, and if you look at that list of units that I had on that one screen, some years it's as low as 20 units built. Some years it's 15, but on average, we're closer to 20 units. So this is what it would typically look like. In a high growth environment, it could be close to 60 units. So last year, if 67 units were built in Willow Bend, this is more of the future development trend that you have. So what does that look like when you put it all together? It kind of looks like this. And I'm going to give credit to Brittany for the visual because she said, I really want to see, like, if we have historic enrollment, what does it look like? If we have land use enrollment, what does it look like? And really, if you think about our facility master planning process, the facility master planning process said, if we have slow growth, it looks like this. If we have rapid growth, there was a turn, well, here's your turn. And you can see the delta there is pretty significant. And this is within the next 10 years. So this is what might happen, say, a large subdivision of 540 homes goes into a southern portion of the district that is annexed by a local municipality that could potentially occur. So,
Can you read that last date for me?
2034.
Thank you.
So this factors into the daily work that Brian does to hire our staff, because when we have more students come in, we have staffing that aligns with that staff or the student count, but it also impacts our operational efficiency, our facility capacity, and the future build-out plan for Granville schools. So this is just to give you an idea of some of the work that the Strategic Planning Task Force looked at last Tuesday. And we talked a little bit more specifically about Heath Hills. And I do want to say publicly that we have been told that that subdivision has been, the plan has been submitted to Heath City Council. Their review process looks like this. The first layer of their process goes to departments for review. So fire, police, roads, sewer infrastructure, water. All the departments look at the infrastructure or the plan design and give feedback. The next step is it goes to Planning Commission. Planning Commission then has a chance to look at the department review, ask additional questions, and when it goes through planning, there is a required public hearing. Janelle from my office is monitoring their website every single day for any announcements. Right now, actually at 5:30 today, they're on their ongoing projects list. Heath Hills was listed, and it's under PUD review, which is that department review. So until that changes into a public hearing for planning, we will try and keep everybody updated. I plan on sending our entire parent population a brief email this week outlining the information I'm sharing with you. The second step to that process, after it goes through planning, is it goes to Heath City Council for their review and their review of planning and departments, and then there is an additional public hearing. And because Granville residents don't get to vote on Heath City Council elected members, I do believe it's an important opportunity for Granville community members to voice their concerns around the density and the lack of funding that is associated with a subdivision of this magnitude, which is something that we have been sharing with anybody that will listen over the last year and a half, 2 years. Brittany, is there anything that I have missed? Okay. What questions might you have about anything that I've shared?
Would you mind jumping back to the slide that has the building use? There we go, impacted facilities.
Yeah.
And you choose which one is the best. Okay, so that's the 60 units.
So I'll call your attention to right here and right here. And honestly, the MI subdivision Heath Hills will probably take, once water and sewer infrastructure is available, it will probably take anywhere between 6 and 9 years to build out. And so when you talk about that, you're talking about water and sewer infrastructure probably going in these years, and then homes starting to be built, and then a 5 to 6 year run. What's important from our vantage point as a governance team is to build at the optimal time to accommodate the influx of students. So water and sewer availability means nothing to us. It's when homes are built and students are coming from them in droves, that's when we want to be prepared so that we're not in a position of playing catch up, but that we are seamlessly providing the education that Granville is known for. And that, I think, is the expectation of this community.
Although ideally, a bond schedule, a build-out schedule, you could be looking at maybe 50% of that potential neighborhood still commuting quite a long way until a building is finished.
Correct. Yeah, once you pass a bond, expect 18 months to 24 months of building. You can do it in 18 months. It's probably more realistic under the current construction environment for it to be closer to 24 months. Wilbert says thank you. Okay, any other questions?
So much.
Okay. Oh, I shouldn't do that. Press any other button.
Okay. How quickly did Willow Hills
Willow
build out?
Bend.
Yeah, Willow Bend build out. 12 months?
3 years, 2 years?
I would, it was probably closer to 2 years
Okay.
from
And there's
the
65?
67.
67? Okay.
Potential, I think there's still 4 in it.
Okay, and let me
So 500.
stop here. Sorry, I was gonna bring it over to you, but I was just taking too long.
It's a lot of goodness.
What I will also say is Park Trails, the current yield from that subdivision, which is close to 25 years old now, is 1.2, 1.3. So it's still relatively high. It's an outlier according to that line of best fit that we saw on that one graph related to maturity.
Do you know the price range of homes?
Yeah, so they say the price range is 500,000 to 800,000, which means it's gonna be closer to 600,000 to
That's more
900,000.
than what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's good, they will be
Wait,
expensive.
no, are you talking about Keith Hills? or-
Details.
Well, what's Park Trails?
Price range?
Yeah.
That's up to the individual homeowner at this point. I believe that they started originally at like 250,
Right. they were
25
less.
years ago.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, you have homes selling for 550, 600,000 in that
The
right
high
now.
is 625.
625.
Well, I was just thinking we'd do.
I mean, we bought ours in 16 for 274,
Yeah.
so, and it was already, older when we bought it, but that was before things kind of went nuts. I'd say right now it's mid-4s to mid-5s, so
Okay.
it's, pretty much on average over there.
Yeah.
Now, Willow Bend is a really big span, because there's a lot of like customization and things like I've heard of people spending over 7 in there, but I've also heard of, low 4.
Okay.
So Willow Bend's kind of a bigger range.
Bigger range. Okay. Monthly financial report.
All right. Jumping into the cash balance for the month of December, our cash balance is $6.7 million less than where we were last December. Again, this is due to the capital projects transfer that we had at the end of last fiscal year. We're also really close to our low point in the fiscal year for our total cash balance. December, similar to November, we didn't have local tax revenue, so really just looking at state, very much in alignment with prior year, which is what we would expect based on the non-guarantee. Looking at year-to-date, local taxes up over prior year, again, that's the income tax, collections being higher than the previous year. And then the state revenue is up, and that's the catch-up payment for the implementation of the performance supplement, which is the new component of the state funding formula for this year. On the expenditure side, just our typical base salary and step increases under salary and benefits, and typical inflationary increases under purchase service. Similar situation on the year-to-date amounts. Additionally, I'll note under all of their expenses, that variance is due to timing of the capital projects transfer. So we'll continue to see that variance throughout this year. Speaking of capital projects, we did finish up the boiler project at the high school. We haven't finished paying, so the invoicing is a little bit delayed, so that will likely, though, fall off next month. And then we have the addition of the air handler 6. So basically, I took those small dollar amounts that we had left over from previous projects, as well as an allocation from our future projects, set aside, and put that in the air handler 6, which is an item later on the agenda. And then we have our cash reconciliation, and that is it, unless there are questions. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are now at the part of the agenda where we have public comments. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public committee meeting. If you have public comments, come on up to the podium, state your name and address, and you can speak for up to 3 minutes. Thank you for your service. So yeah, we can move on to board discussion.
Sure. I just kind of framed a lot of what I was going to say related to strategic planning update. I did have the opportunity to go and speak at Village Council at their request to kind of outline some of the issues facing us related to our strategic planning task force conversation. I think the thing that I would reiterate one more time is that our interest in Keith Hills is to try and lower the density and provide some type of revenue stream. most people aren't aware, but, you know, they are planning on placing a 6.5 mil community authority on every home. So that's an additional payment on top of all the taxes that they will be paying. These residents, when they're there, will be paying Granville Schools property tax and Granville Schools income tax if it is still in place and renewed. So they will pay all the current taxes. They will also be paying additional tax in Union Township and in Heath. So they probably will be one of the most heavily taxed subdivisions in Lincoln County. But part of that is a new community authority that the city of Heath is planning on assessing each homeowner, which is close to 6.5 mils. At this time, Heath's shared that they are going to capture that additional millage to help offset their costs. I think it's only fair for us to advocate on behalf of the Granville tax base that we should have some sort of millage that is associated with the costs that we will incur to educate the students that are coming from that subdivision. And much like Newark did with the Newark Granville Community Authority 26 years ago with the Park Trail subdivision. So if residents want to speak about those issues, I would say tailor your message to lowering density and looking at revenue streams that could help offset the cost for the Granville taxpayers.
The Newark Granville Community Authority, what was the level of support that generated?
That so the millage was like
It's 5.2 mils.
5.2 mils.
Or a flat dollar amount, whichever was more.
Thank you.
And as I said, I will be communicating with parents through our listserv this week related to that update. That's it. Also, I'd like to welcome you to 2026. We're glad we have our board installed, and thank you, Fred, for your service for the last 2 years as board president. You did a fantastic job. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to Melanie's tenure beginning. So on behalf of the administration and staff, thank you for your continued support.
Thank you for all the information. It's a lot to digest, at least for me, jumping into 2026. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about related to Heath Hills, related to funding and building, enrollment, or anything else?
I'd just like to add on Heath Hills that our constituents in Granville Schools understand Heath is taking all of that.
Of the community authority
Yes.
funds, yes.
Yeah, I just want folks in Granville to understand that. As of now, that's how they're approaching it, so.
Is that in addition to property tax for Heath?
Not Heath School.
But Heath City?
Heath City, they will be paying all the existing Heath City taxes.
Right.
Whatever those are.
Right.
They're probably more of an employment tax and a home income tax.
Okay.
2% on
Yeah.
top of that.
Right, and then Granville school taxes, and then.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's almost a deterrent to them finding residents or
Anytime you layer on additional taxation, it creates an additional burden. But that is, the way to pay for infrastructure.
I'm guessing they're counting on people not realizing that will exist when they purchase the home.
Yeah, I mean, there's two current neighborhoods, to my recollection, within the city of Heath that attend Granville schools. Is it Heron Bay, south on 37 there? Just before the old fire department?
Grand Point.
Grand Point.
Grand
But Heron Road maybe. It would just be like those residents pay the normal property tax bill year in, year out. This new neighborhood pays roughly the same as that, plus 6.5, yeah. No.
Just so you're accurate, like Grand Point and those areas are not in Heath currently, they're in Union Township. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I attended the council meeting last week with Jeff, and I thought he did a really good job of bringing them up to speed, and I think the more other residents of Granville schools hear about this, he's going to know how Granville schools thinks about this, and we'll have support from elected officials, but I think it's probably more important to have John Q. Citizen go
Absolutely.
to these, so I'm sure we'll be making sure people, as Jeff said, we're keeping track of this, and I just want to compliment the administration. I think in this whole process, you've done an excellent job of keeping up with this, and we're trying to do everything we can in the community to, lessen the financial burden. We're doing everything we can, and that's what we can do. We're not always successful, but we're going to keep trying.
Is there any benefit to calling a community meeting?
So we used the facility master planning process to kind of bring the community in, but that, it's like the old adage, what have you done for me lately? People move past that. And so I don't think it's a bad idea. We're gonna see how much traction people get in organizing to attend meetings. But I could see if the board wants us to put together another meeting, when we have additional information, I have no problem doing it.
I just think if we have enough notice for that public hearing, I wonder if it would be worthwhile to just set something up in the theater at the high school to just share what we know, and just make people more aware, because emails can be ignored. I think if there's a meeting about the subdivision being built, people are gonna show up.
Absolutely. Well, I'll rely on the board to give me kind of timing direction once I give you information.
Yeah, I think it'll all depend on if we have enough notice on that public
Exactly.
hearing. If we have a week's notice, then we don't have time.
Okay. Will do.
Okay.
Ready for the action agenda?
Ready for the action agenda,
All
yes,
right.
please.
I'm sorry. I just want to wish Ms. Shaw and Mr. Cronk good luck. I know we're in capable hands with their leadership, and look forward to serving with them in their leadership roles.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've gotten to watch some very competent presidents, including Mr. Wolf. So he won't take credit, it's true.
Okay, Love Fest over? All right, here we go. Here we 6.01, board policy adoption. So once we have a motion in a second, I need to talk a little bit about this.
Second.
All right, so we actually have 3 policies that are more time sensitive typically than the usual 2 readings that we have available. So tonight we're asking to waive the first reading and approve the following policies effective immediately. And that's really because the legislation that crafted or the auditor's opinion that formed these policies, really, they expected an immediate policy change. So the first one is the procurement of and administration of overdose reversal drugs. So we do have an overdose reversal drug currently in our buildings, managed by Gina Burdick, who is our district school nurse. And now they are suggesting that we pass a policy that will govern that usage a little bit more specifically. So that's the first policy. I will rely on my competent colleague to articulate the other 2.
Yeah, so the other 2 are related to expense reimbursements. One is, one piece of that is that it used to be unethical to receive frequent flyer miles or Kroger Plus rewards points related to district purchases, and that is now not unethical. So we have to remove that language from the policy, which is interesting, an interesting change of the Ethics Commission to make that
Right, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way you can get those personally is if you use your own credit card, right? Or use,
No, so like if I had a district credit card and I were going to Kroger, I could swipe my Kroger Plus card and then use the district credit card.
Really?
So the district's paying for it, but I'm getting the fuel points or whatever
Okay.
from Kroger, yeah. But
interesting.
previously, you couldn't use your Kroger Plus card and then
Right.
you would just pay more for the product. So maybe they've come around to the fact that that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Right.
But anyway, so that language specifically was in the policy, it has to be removed. The second piece of this is related to tax exempt certificate not being able to be used if you are making a purchase on behalf of the district using your personal credit card. So a majority of our purchases are made with the district credit card, so this really, I don't anticipate being a huge issue. But you can't use a tax exempt certificate and your personal credit card. So since you can't do that, this change in the policy is going to allow us to reimburse employees for the tax that they will have to pay. So it'll specifically allows for that and then changes some of the dollar limits associated with like what that total purchase could be for the tax implication, and also around meal reimbursements and the amounts associated with those reimbursements as well. Again, we don't do a lot of reimbursements to employees because we have a lot of district credit cards that we manage and have available for staff to use. So not a huge, I don't think it'll have a huge practical impact, but to align with the auditor state bulletin, we're making those changes.
May I ask a question about going back to the overdose reversal drugs? Do we offer anything besides Narcan, or is it just,
Right now, that's all we offer.
okay. I just was curious because it said drugs, so.
I think they create policy for future products that are maybe not on the market right.
And that's in all of our buildings?
It is.
Okay. Take a roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Colon?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
6.02 is the approval of resolution authorizing agreements with Right Road Company.
So moved.
Second.
So we are starting to get into our PI items for the summer of 2026. So this is kind of the resolution authorizing agreements with Right Road for additional carpet removal and addition of LVT, as we've been doing for the last 8 years, trying to remove carpet that needs to come out.
Any questions? Take the roll, please.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Colon?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
6.03 is the approval of the agreement with Train.
So moved.
Second.
This is the item that Brittany was talking about during her monthly financial report. This is for the HVAC replacement of air handler unit 6 at GHS.
Is this summer work as well?
Yes.
Questions? Take the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Colon?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
7.01 is the consent agenda, 7.01 through, I believe, 7.08. We have all the traditional items that are on the consent agenda. Oh,
So moved.
Second.
thank you. No, I
anonymous donor who has paid some of our lunch tab for our students.
I would like you to know, I'm doing the auto reimbursement, so that's not paying for my children's lunch. Thank you very much. If anybody has that issue as well, come talk to me. Please take the roll, please.
Can I really send them to you?
Yeah, of course. I'll show them how easy it is.
Ms. Colon? Aye. Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 8.01, approval of the then and now resolution.
So moved.
Second.
We have a couple this month, one for facility rental for the Lynx at Echo Springs, one for an EGR cooler from Houdini Trucks, one for the ROCKS program, and then another one related to the water line extension change order.
So water, did we have a motion, right? Yes. Was the water line here, was it GS?
GIS.
Oh, yes, yes, okay, thank you. Yep. Any questions, thoughts? Take the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Klein? Aye. Mr. Cronk?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Klein? Aye. Mr. Cronk?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye. Now concludes, do I need to conclude? Do I need to sing?
Yes.
Great job.